What happens when hate picks the wrong target? When arrogance walks up to someone it never bothered to understand? When cruelty aimed at a quiet man in a parking lot on a Tuesday evening becomes the most embarrassing moment of a young person's life? This is that story. It started just after 6:30 in the evening in Clarksville, Tennessee. The kind of evening where the sky sits orange and heavy and the air smells like cut grass and someone's backyard grill. Raymond Cole had just finished. A long day. Not dramatic long, not headline long, just the ordinary exhausting kind. He was a 54-year-old man with broad shoulders and graying temples and hands that looked like they'd done real work for real years. He was wearing a faded navy jacket, dark jeans, scuffed boots. Nothing that asked for attention. Nothing that announced anything. He parked his old GMC pickup in the lot outside Peterson's Hardware on Route 41 and stepped out slow, the way men do when their knees have started making their own opinions known. He grabbed a small list from the dash. 3 things: weather stripping, caulk gun, a box of wood screws. He'd been fixing up the back porch on weekends. Nothing fancy. Just making sure the house stayed tight before winter moved in. He never made it through the front door. There were 4 of them. Teenagers, maybe 17, 18 at most. They were parked 2 spaces over in a lifted pickup with a cracked taillight and a Confederate flag sticker on the rear window. They'd been watching him the moment he pulled in. Raymond noticed them the way experienced men notice things quietly, without reacting. Filing it away, the one in the front, a tall kid with a shaved head and a red hoodie, called out first. "Hey, old man. What are you doing out here?" Raymond didn't stop, didn't slow down, kept his eyes ahead. That was when the second one stepped out of the truck. "I'm talking to you." Raymond paused, turned, looked at the kid directly. Calm. No fear in his face, none of the flinch they were hoping for. That seemed to irritate the group, more than anything else would have. "What do you want?" Raymond said. His voice was flat and even, the kind of voice that doesn't waste breath. The kid in the red hoodie moved closer. "You lost, boy." The word hung in the air like something rotten. Raymond didn't answer. He started walking again toward the entrance. And that's when the tallest one, a thick-necked kid with a snapback and a sneer that looked practiced, stepped directly in front of him, blocking the path. Close enough that Raymond could smell the energy drink on his breath. "We're talking to you." Raymond looked at him, long and steady, then said quietly, "I'd suggest you move." The kid laughed, short and ugly. "Or what?" Raymond said nothing, just held his ground. That was when the third one shoved him from behind. Not a punch, just a hard, 2-handed push to the back of the shoulder, the kind designed to humiliate rather than injure. Raymond stumbled forward half a step, caught himself on the side mirror of his truck, and turned around slowly. His jaw was set. His eyes were quiet, not scared, something else entirely. The fourth kid, smaller, hanging back near the truck, pulled out his phone and started recording. The one in the red hoodie stepped in close again. "You don't belong here. You understand me?" Raymond looked at him for a long moment. The kind of look that's been practiced through decades of absorbing things that would have broken lesser men. Then he said, "You have no idea who you're dealing with." The kid laughed again, louder this time. "Oh yeah. And who's that?" Raymond didn't answer. He reached into his jacket pocket slowly, deliberately, and pulled out his phone. He made a call. 1 ring, 2. Then a voice picked up on the other end. "Hey, Dad. What's up?" Raymond said 3 words, "I need you." Then he hung up. The kids looked at each other, amused. The one with the camera lowered his phone just slightly. "You called your son?" the neck kid said, grinning. "That's real cute, old man. He gonna come save you?" Raymond looked at the ground for just a moment, not out of shame, more like a man doing math in his head, deciding how much patience he had left. He looked back up. "Yeah," he said simply. "He's on his way." The group found this hysterical. They moved around him in that way that groups do when they feel like they've got the power, circling without fully committing, performing for each other more than anything else. The one with the phone went back to recording. The kid in the red hoodie said something else. Sharp, ugly, words that don't need repeating here, but words that cut like they were designed to. Raymond stood completely still, hands at his sides, not shaking, not clenching, just still. A woman, loading groceries on the far end of the parking lot, had stopped and was watching. An older man coming out of the hardware store slowed down near the entrance. A few people in passing cars craned their necks. None of them intervened. Not yet. The tallest kid leaned in close to Raymond's face. "Your son gonna pull up in what? Some beat-up Honda. He gonna get the same treatment you did, old man." Raymond's expression didn't change. He just said, "Not quite." 8 minutes passed. The group kept circling, kept talking, kept performing. Raymond stood near his truck and didn't engage, didn't back down, didn't leave. Then they heard it. It was a sound that didn't belong in that parking lot. Not on a Tuesday evening outside a hardware store in Clarksville, Tennessee. A black SUV with government plates turned into the lot, moving at a pace that suggested purpose. It didn't park. It pulled up directly to where Raymond was standing and stopped. The driver's door opened. The man who stepped out was in his late 20s, tall, broader than his father, wearing the olive-green service uniform of the United States Army. His posture was immaculate. His expression was unreadable. His rank insignia caught what was left of the evening light. Captain Marcus Cole. He looked at his father first. "You good, Dad?" Raymond nodded once. "I'm good." Marcus turned and looked at each of the 4 teenagers one at a time. Slow and deliberate. The way you look at something when you're not afraid of it, and you wanted to know that. The group had gone, quiet. The kid in the red hoodie was still standing there, but something in his posture had changed. The circling had stopped. The performing had stopped. The one with the phone had already lowered it all the way down. Marcus took 2 steps toward them. His voice was calm. Completely calm. The kind of calm that comes from having been in situations where calm was the only thing standing between order and catastrophe. "Which one of you put your hands on my father?" Silence. Marcus waited. He wasn't in a hurry. The thick-necked kid shifted his weight, opened his mouth, closed it again. The smaller one in the back took a literal step backward. Marcus looked at the one in the red hoodie. "You want to say something?" The kid looked down at the asphalt. "I'm sorry," he said, barely audible. Marcus didn't accept it right away. He didn't perform relief or satisfaction. He just kept looking at the group. "Here's what's going to happen," he said, his voice still even. "You're going to walk back to that truck, every one of you, and you're going to think very carefully about what kind of men you're choosing to become. Because what you did here tonight wasn't just wrong, it was cowardly. And cowardice tends to follow a person around a long time." The kid in the red hoodie looked up briefly, then back down. Marcus turned to the one who'd had the phone. "That video goes nowhere, you understand me?" The kid nodded fast. Marcus held eye contact for 1 more second, then turned back to his father. The group shuffled to their truck without another word. Doors closed. The engine started. The lifted pickup backed out and left the lot. No bravado. No last words. No squealing tires. Just gone. The woman with the groceries across the lot exhaled. The older man at the hardware store entrance slowly went inside. Raymond looked at his son, then looked at the entrance to the store. "Still need those wood screws," he said. Marcus almost smiled. "Yeah, let's go." But the story didn't end there, because what happened in that parking lot was only the first part. Raymond Cole hadn't always driven an old GMC and shopped at Peterson's Hardware with a handwritten list. There was a whole life behind that Tuesday evening that the 4 teenagers in the lifted pickup knew nothing about and never thought to wonder about. Raymond grew up in rural Georgia, the third of 5 children, the son of a man who repaired farm equipment and a woman who taught 3rd grade for 31 years. The family didn't have money. They had discipline, routine, and a kitchen table where every problem eventually got talked through. Raymond left at 18, picked up construction work, learned every trade he could get his hands on. By the time he was 30, he had his own small contracting company out of Nashville, 12 employees, residential builds mostly, some commercial. Nothing that made headlines, but everything that paid his people on time and built houses that lasted. He married Patricia in 1995. She was a registered nurse, quick-witted, sharper than anyone in the room at any given moment. They had one son, Marcus. From the day that boy could walk, Raymond had been deliberate about what he was teaching him. Not just through words, but through how he moved through the world. Raymond never let anyone see him rattle. Not contractors who tried to stiff him. Not city inspectors who gave him a harder time than they gave anyone else. Not the clients who spoke to him like he was supposed to be grateful for whatever they offered. Raymond handled everything with the same quiet steadiness. He used to tell Marcus, when Marcus was still young enough to sit on the tailgate of the truck after a long job, "The loudest thing about you should be your work, not your reaction." Marcus had been listening. The boy graduated top of his ROTC class. Got accepted to West Point. Served 2 tours, one in Iraq, one in Afghanistan. Came home with a chest full of commendations and a manner that made rooms quiet when he walked in. Not because he demanded, yet because he'd earned it in places where the cost was real. He was stationed at Fort Campbell, 32 minutes from that parking lot. Raymond hadn't called him because he couldn't handle 4 teenagers. Raymond called him because he knew what was being recorded. He knew how these things could unfold. He wanted a witness. He wanted someone who could stand there beside him calmly and let the situation resolve without it becoming something tragic. That was the calculation, not weakness, strategy. Now here's the part that the 4 teenagers discovered the following morning, because word travels fast in a town like Clarksville. The woman who had been watching from across the parking lot wasn't just a woman loading groceries. She was Sandra Pruitt, a local journalist with the Leaf Chronicle who had covered the military community for 11 years. She hadn't just watched. She'd taken photos on her own phone. Discreetly, thoroughly. She recognized Marcus Cole. Immediately. She'd done a profile on him 2 years prior when he received the Bronze Star. She knew exactly who Raymond was because she'd interviewed him then too. The proud, quiet father who'd shown up in a pressed shirt and said almost nothing about himself. By 9 the next morning, she had a story drafted. By noon, it was published. By 3 in the afternoon, it had been picked up by 3 regional outlets. By evening, it had reached national social media. The headline was simple: 4 teens harass black man outside Tennessee hardware store. Man's son. His decorated Army captain thought the video the kid had taken didn't go anywhere. But Sandra's photos did. The red hoodie was visible. The cracked taillight on the lifted truck was visible. The Confederate flag sticker was visible. The faces were visible. By the next morning, every one of the 4 teenagers had been identified by people in the community who recognized them without even trying. 2 of them attended Clarksville High School. 1 was the son of a county commissioner. 1 worked part-time at a grocery store 3 miles from the hardware lot. The county commissioner, a man named Gerald Hatch, released a statement by 6 p.m. that Wednesday. It was the standard kind at first. He deeply regretted the incident and would be speaking with his son. Language like that. Careful. Distanced. But by Thursday morning, the superintendent of the school district had made a call. By Thursday afternoon, the principal of Clarksville High had called both families of the students who attended there. By Friday, disciplinary proceedings had started. The grocery store let the 4th teenager go quietly, no announcement, just a schedule that suddenly had no more shifts on it. The one in the red hoodie, whose name was Tyler Hatch, Gerald Hatch's son, sat in his father's study Thursday night while his father stood at the window not looking at him for a long time. His father finally said, "You have any idea what you cost this family?" Tyler didn't answer. His father turned around. "Not just me. You. What you cost yourself?" Tyler looked at the floor, the same way he'd looked at the parking lot asphalt when Marcus had been standing in front of him. His father exhaled. "You're going to write a letter. A real one." Not something I write for you. Not something that sounds like a press release. A real letter to that man. And to his son. And you're going to mean every word. Tyler started to say something. His father raised his hand. I'm not finished. And then you're going to figure out what comes next. Because this doesn't just go away because the news cycle moves on. It doesn't go away because I call someone and smooth it over. You did this. You own it. It was the most honest thing Gerald Hatch had said in a long time. The letter arrived at Raymond's house on a Saturday, handwritten, 2 pages. Tyler had clearly written it himself because it was messy in the margins and a sentence got crossed out halfway through on the first page. Raymond sat at his kitchen table and read it twice. Patricia stood in the doorway watching him. What does it say? She asked. Raymond set it down on the table. He says he's sorry. Says he doesn't know why he does the things he does sometimes and he's trying to figure that out. Says he's been doing some thinking about the kind of person he wants to be. Patricia came and sat down across from him. You believe him? Raymond was quiet for a moment. I believe he got scared, he said, finally. And sometimes getting scared is the beginning of changing. Sometimes it's not. But you can't know from here. Patricia nodded. Raymond folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. What are you going to do with it? She asked. Keep it, he said, in case he ever needs to know that someone received it. Marcus was back at Fort Campbell by then. His CO had heard the story through channels the way things travel in the military, through someone's cousin who worked with someone's roommate who saw the article. He called Marcus in and said simply, You handled that right. Marcus nodded. Said thank you. His CO leaned back. You know what you were doing out there was as much a demonstration of command under pressure as anything you've done in the field. Marcus looked at him. Most people would have escalated. His CO continued. You de-escalated, in a situation that had every reason to go the other direction. That's not nothing. Marcus went back to his office and sat for a while after that. Not out of pride, but out of something quieter. He thought about his father standing in that parking lot, not shaking, not shrinking, holding his ground with a dignity that didn't require an audience. He thought about every evening on the tailgate of that truck, every lesson delivered in the form of behavior rather than lecture. The loudest thing about you should be your work, not your reaction. He'd carried that his whole life without always knowing he was carrying it. That Sunday, Marcus drove back to his father's house. They spent the afternoon fixing the back porch together. Weather stripping, caulk gun, box of wood screws. Raymond handed him tools without unnecessary conversation. Marcus took them and did the work. At one point, Marcus looked over at his father and said, You weren't scared at all, were you? Raymond measured a strip of weather stripping against the door frame. Not really, he said. Marcus shook his head slightly. I need to be more like that. Raymond looked at him. Son, he said, you were the one who drove up in 8 minutes in full uniform without asking a single question first. You think I don't know what that cost you to interrupt your evening, to come when your father called? Marcus didn't answer. You already are like that, Raymond said. You've just been like it in places where I couldn't watch. They finished the porch as the sun went down. In the weeks that followed, Sandra Pruitt wrote a follow-up piece. Not about the teenagers, not about the confrontation, about Raymond Cole, about the company he'd built, the employees he'd paid through the lean years, the house in Clarksville he'd bought when Patricia said she wanted a garden with real sun, about Marcus and the 2 tours and the Bronze Star and the quiet father who showed up in a pressed shirt. She titled it simply, The Man They Thought They Could Dismiss. It got more reads than anything she'd written in 3 years. Raymond's phone rang more than usual that week. Old clients. People he'd worked with decades ago. A couple of people he didn't know at all who just wanted to say they'd seen the story. He answered each call the same way. Said thank you. Said he was doing fine. Said he appreciated it. He didn't give any interviews beyond Sandra's. He didn't want the attention. He had a porch to finish and a kitchen faucet that had been dripping since October. But in the evenings, sitting at that kitchen table with Patricia, he sometimes thought about those 4 boys in the parking lot, not with anger. Not anymore. With something closer to grief. The kind you feel when you see young people choosing smallness when they could have chosen anything else. He hoped at least one of them was sitting somewhere asking themselves the right questions. Not because he needed an apology, but because the world had enough people who never did. Tyler Hatch enrolled in a community service program by November. It wasn't court-ordered. His father hadn't required it. He did it on his own, quietly, without posting about it anywhere. He started tutoring middle schoolers on Wednesday evenings at the public library 3 blocks from his house. Raymond didn't know about that. He probably never would. But somewhere in Clarksville, a 17-year-old boy was learning what it felt like to be useful to someone instead of harmful, and that, whether anyone ever connected it back to a Tuesday parking lot or not, was something. It started with a shove, a hateful word, 4 teenagers who thought they knew exactly who they were dealing with. It ended with a man on a back porch in the evening light, tightening screws into wood that would hold for years, his son working quietly beside him. No ceremony, no headlines, just 2 people who understood something that the 4 boys in that lifted truck were only beginning to learn. You don't get to decide who a man is by looking at his jacket, or the age on his face, or the color of his skin. You don't get to decide who a man is at all. He already decided that, long before you arrived, and if you're lucky, before you do something you can't take back, you find that out. Let this story be a reminder. Hate is always making the same mistake. It looks at a person and sees something small, but some people have spent their whole lives becoming something that can't be touched by it, and sometimes what stands behind them would make you freeze in a parking lot on a Tuesday evening and look at the asphalt because looking up takes more than you've got. Choose who you're becoming before the moment chooses for you. Because the moment doesn't care how old you are or who your father is. It just arrives. And what you do in it is the only thing that matters.